Alice and the Creator's Secret. Chapter 2. It had been such a long time since we were all together, Camden, Clarissa, Irene, and I. So much had occurred since the start of our adventure to Fictitious 2 years ago. Camden got married to Christy as he said he would and had a child. He was now 20. Clarissa was 21 and quickly becoming a skilled designer, having secured an internship at a notable fashion company. As for Irene and me, we were in our final year of high school. We sat in a circle on the green grass in Marley's lawn. She invited all of us over to meet her daughter, Christine. All 3 of her children were adorable. Odette and Jason whizzed around us while Christine was in her mum's arms. Irene looked from her nephew and nieces over to us in the circle. It's lovely to be together again. Though I'm surprised you came, Camden. I thought you would have moved from England now that you were married. Camden sighed. I need to go back. It isn't the same. I need to talk about what happened in that book with someone. My eyes studied Irene's face. She didn't seem pleased with Camden's response, but she didn't say anything about it. Instead, she pulled out the green book, which flashed into the silver when we all looked upon it. Apparently, darkness has come again. I don't know what will happen this time around, but I really want to keep everyone safe, so this time I'm coming with you, Irene said. We all tilted our heads. She laughed at the expressions we made. Carefully, she opened up the book and pushed it in the middle of our circle. Now, no one must know I'm the creator, and I must go on a separate journey. There is something I have to do alone. Currently, I've been receiving reports from the wise man of old regarding dark witchcraft. I suspect that many of the witches have been taken over by darkness. Are you ready? I placed my hand down on the book. Yes. Clarissa did the same. Camden followed her example. Irene smiled as we all agreed to go, but something about her smile didn't fit the emotion in her eyes. Something was up. We took our hands off the book as Irene pulled it back to her. She read the page it turned to, vanished quickly like smoke, and helped save us from chaos. As I saw smoke billow around us, young Odette came towards Clarissa. I watched the young girl disappear with us to Fictitious. When we found ourselves standing on solid ground again, we all panicked as Odette stood clutching Clarissa's arm and a teddy bear. What do we do with her? Camden asked. Is this even supposed to happen? Clarissa held Odette's hand firmly when she realized they were in the armory room of Baldwin. Nothing in here would do for a 5-year-old to play with. Soon, Clarissa just picked Odette up. Well, from what I understand, few people have a connection to this world. From what I've seen so far from your previous journey as well as the times I've come as myself, none of us has an existing doppelganger. Perhaps Odette is the same. Whatever the case, the magic in the book clearly wants her here, Irene explained, gently booping Odette's nose as the child looked around curiously. Irene then peered around the room herself. I could tell she felt exposed coming here, possibly worried someone would guess her identity as the creator. That was when Titus walked into the room with the wise man of old. I couldn't stop myself as I ran to Titus and we embraced. He laughed as I backed away from him. He took me in with a smile. You've grown. You're what, 17 now? I nodded. Yeah, I've been keen to see you ever since we left. Same here. The wise man of old cleared his throat, earning our attention. Then he stepped over to Irene and tilted his head slightly in a bow. Well, it didn't take long for her to be noticed, but seeing as the wise man of old was her messenger, I expected nothing less. My lady, he whispered, I presume you know better than anyone why you are here. Yes, I'll need to get there quickly. There isn't much time before. Camden shrieked in pain as he fell to his knees, his eyes watering. Clarissa got to his side with Odette still in her arms. Camden. What is it? He puffed out air as he knelt on the floor for a while. His eyes squeezed shut and he rose up to his feet. I saw, he began, looking over at Irene. Forget it. I need to get to Avani. Clarissa clicked her tongue. Camden, there isn't time to see Catherine right now, all right? He shook his head. No, it isn't that. He turned to the wise man of old. That's where we have to go soon, isn't it? The wise man of old made a slight movement with his head, signaling that Camden was right. There is a lot of studying you must do. The witches are seeking an ancient pendant to perform a ritual that will amplify their magic. They recently escaped from the prison in their search for it. I can only guess that darkness agreed to make them stronger as well. You must find that pendant before they do. So why did you bring us here? Clarissa asked, scanning the armory they were in. That's when she saw that Odette was trying to reach a spear. She backed away from it and added, "And what do I do with my niece?" Titus answered her question as to why we were brought to Baldwin. Here in Baldwin there is rumored to be a witch over the element water hiding out here. We don't think she is a part of this group of witches that escaped the prison, but we have to make sure she isn't a threat. Of course, Alice and I can easily check this out on our own. Irene shot us a wary glance, but then the wise man of old stepped in, blocking her gaze. It's settled then, the rest of us will go up to Avani. I believe the child should be safe in Catherine's care. Before we go, I am sure you will want to pick out your weapons. I turned to the wall lined with weapons. Going over to it, I picked up a dagger. Clarissa handed Odette off to Irene as she got herself a bow and quiver. Camden picked up a sword. We all gazed over at Irene to see if she would take anything, but her eyes fell to the floor as she held Odette tightly in her arms. "I'll be fine without one," she said, setting Odette down on the ground, making sure to keep a good hold on her hand. "Let's go." Together we all walked out of the armory, still wearing our shorts and t-shirts. Not that it really mattered what we wore, but we did look less heroic. As we strolled down the halls of the castle, I caught sight of my portrait, making me blush at the sight of it. They did an excellent job of making me look older than I actually was. Ahead of me, Irene traded Odette back to Clarissa. She then slowed down to my pace and pulled me back so Titus wasn't next to us. He glanced back but saw Irene wanted to speak to me alone. "Alice, please be careful when you go off on your own. I have a funny feeling about all of this. Just keep your head on straight." Before she could say anything about Titus, I stopped her. "Irene, my parents have allowed me to date. It'll be fine. I'm not going to do anything daft. Besides, I've spent plenty of time without the others." She didn't seem comforted at all by this. "I trust you. Just remember to trust me, yeah? Please, if anything." "All right," I replied, a bit perplexed about what she was on about. We picked up the pace to catch up with the others. When we did, they had already reached the doors that led to the rest of the kingdom, well, the part that was in the air bubble that apparently Irene created. It made me wonder what kinds of powers she had here. The wise man of old opened the door and turned to Titus and me. "Take care, you two. If there are any problems, come right to Avani." "Of course," I said, watching my friends leave the castle. I noticed Irene's eyes on me as the doors closed again. Something was definitely troubling her. Before I could do or say anything to Titus, he nabbed my hand with a cheeky grin on his face. His sea-green eyes matched his shirt. "Come on, let's get you into queenly apparel." I laughed as we raced down the halls to my room. He flung open the doors and there was a beautiful dress waiting for me. It was a light blue and had golden, wavy designs threaded into the fabric. A gold belt was at the waist and the sleeves were puffed and caped. Two maids bustled about the room, rattling jars containing a sea plant that gave off a warm yellow light once stirred. Otherwise, the only other source of light came from the windows. Since we were in the ocean, the sun barely reached through the waves and the large air bubble. Titus then brought something else out. At first, I thought it was a gold necklace, but then he placed it on my head. I realized it was a headpiece often worn by mermaid royalty. I felt ridiculous wearing it with such casual clothing, but that would soon change. "Now, finish off your look," he said, gesturing toward the dress. "I'll be back soon." He left the room. The maids eagerly dressed me, and I was dancing around in front of the mirror when Titus returned. I had never felt so beautiful before as I did then as he smiled at me. My mind jumped back to what Irene said, but I put it aside as Titus held his hand out to me. "I believe we're ready for another adventure," he said. I giggled. I can barely contain myself. I've been wanting this for 2 years and now I'm finally back. We walked out of the room and into the halls, where it was decorated in seashells and the same glowing jars from my bedchamber. The sea would forever be my favorite place to visit in my world and this world. It just had a calming presence with a rhythm that sang to my soul. I can't contain myself either. Ever since you left, I have been thinking about what you last said to me. You mean about my favorite Greek myth? Hades and Persephone? Or was it about that fantasy book I told you about? I honestly can't remember what I last said to you. He stopped, catching both of my hands. No, about how you had a crush on me. I figured out what that means. You did? I said, blushing. Yeah, and I think would be great together. Don't you? I smiled, thinking the same thing. Yes, but we should focus on the mission first. Agreed. But after, we'll speak properly about our future. Now, rumors say the witch isn't far from here, though you would think she would have hidden herself better. We rushed down the halls again until we got to the castle doors. The guards opened them for us, and we headed out into my kingdom. For many blocks, we walked until Titus took us down another path. Slowly, the buildings became smaller, and the colors began to mix with one another, becoming a gray that saddened my heart. After a while, we came to a stop at a house that protruded irregularly from the air bubble. As far as I was concerned, the bubble was a perfect dome. Titus pulled out his trident as he let go of my hand. I held up my dagger as we crept toward the house. Just as he was about to open the door, the section of ground on which the house was located shook violently. Quickly, Titus threw open the door to find not one but two witches inside. They looked over at us as their hands were up in the air performing magic. Titus tried to speak, but before he could, the door behind us slammed shut and we toppled into each other. We felt the house being lifted. When we gained our balance, I looked out one of the windows to see that the witches had created a tornado of water. The witches must have control over air and water, which explained the expanded air pocket. Then we returned our attention to the witches as they did their magic. At this point, we could only assume that they were attempting to flee or cause chaos. Stop this! I shouted as I felt the house coming out of the ocean and into the air. From out of the window, I saw us heading toward land at a quick pace. And since we were in a tornado, the house began to spin as well. Since both Titus and I were trying to move around and fight them, we were knocked to our feet. Soon we gave up and lay in the spot we were at until we saw an opportunity to fight them. They still hadn't said a word as they focused everything they had on the tornado, which continued to intensify in strength and speed. Once we hit the land, there was a jolt. Titus and I both expected the ride to be over, but it kept going. Thankfully, from what I could tell, we weren't heading towards any of the kingdoms, so no houses were destroyed in the wake of their disaster. I could not say the same for grazing animals in the fields, though. It went on like that for miles, and my stomach was in knots. When I felt the spinning die a little bit, we were over the sandy desert. Titus and I shakily stood and rushed them. The one I went after was alert when I reached her. Her eyes opened as she grabbed my hand, which held the dagger. We had a struggle with it until she got me against the door. With all her strength, she tried to force my dagger into me with both of her hands. That's when I reached one hand back to open up the door. Though my dagger was still in her hands, I let the girl fall into the sands below us. From what I could tell, I didn't kill her as her figure stood back up in the sand. Then I turned my attention back to Titus and the second witch. With the other witch gone, the tornado lost its power significantly. Titus pushed the second witch out of one of the windows. As soon as he did, the tornado vanished and the house tumbled to the surface. We grabbed onto the window's railing for support as we watched the second witch get squashed under us. We both gasped as we stared down at what remained of her. We quickly ran out the door and onto the sand on the other side of the window. Only the second witch's legs could be seen along with her silver shoes. I looked at Titus, horrified by the death we caused. Then, from behind us, the first witch came running, her strawberry blonde hair bouncing all around. She screamed out for her sister, and when she reached us, her face was wet with tears. Her eyes told me she'd have no problem ending us there. However, she clenched her fists and made a demand. "Let me have her shoes." We didn't mean harm upon anyone. Titus held up his trident. Don't give us that. You were trying to escape, which means you're guilty of something. Why do you want the shoes so badly? She looked down at the slippers and gulped. Because she would want me to have them, that's why. And you'd run from place to place if people hated you like they do me. There's more to it than that, he said, pressing for further information. She sighed tiredly. The shoes are enchanted. She got them from the wizard who took care of us. Now just give them to me or I will use my magic. I could tell by her face that she was bluffing. No, you won't, because you can't. You control water and we're in the desert. We're keeping the shoes. She narrowed her eyes. Before we could say more, she turned away and ran for it. Titus shook his head and bolted after her. I almost did too, but then I remembered the shoes. Quickly, I took mine off and slipped them on. After that, I ran through the sand and the heat, following the figures of Titus and the girl. Suddenly, I saw Titus stop in his tracks as the girl seemed to vanish. I thought perhaps it went downhill, so I kept running. When I got to Titus, he tried shouting something at me, but it was too late as I stepped into some sort of quicksand. It pulled me in right away down into complete darkness.